Hey guys, welcome and ting and ting and ting. And someone suggested I watch this video, okay? And this one is called The Crazy Englishman and the Dark Side of Romania. So we're going to check this out and see what this is all about. Let's get right into it. Let's YouTube and simmer and see what this is all about.
In those days there was no advertising, so there's no neon lights. I mean, there were street lights on the main roads, but no street lights on the side streets. No shops as such. You had to go to the marketplaces to buy your food. There were some tailor shops, I remember, with big cactus plants in the windows. Every shop seemed to have cactus plants for some reason or other, but just a lack of colour. My first contact with Romania came through television coverage of the state of orphanages, so-called. So we drove over here in a van full of medical aid, baby food, all those sort of things, and literally drove across Europe, not knowing what to expect or whatever. There was a big difference in attitude when you got into the Hungarian side. When you got onto the Romanian side, it was completely different. I mean, it was just extraordinary. And I was asked for a stampila. A stamp. I mean, we've never used stamps in England. Why would I need a stamp? And apparently I had to make a list of all the things that were in the vehicle and stamp it to make it official. But I don't have a stamp. Oh, no, then you can't come in. But this is, for the children's side. No, you can't come in, not without a stamp. So I actually used a 10 penny or 10 pence coin, and I rubbed my baro at the top of it to get the impression of this round stamp on this piece of paper with the Queen's head on it. And they must have thought it was really official. So they allowed us in graciously, but we did have to part with a couple of packets of cigarettes, as we normally did when we went over the border. I think the first thing probably was the smell. So it was the smell of excrement and vomit. Permeated everywhere. Then there was the rocking. The children rocking back and forth in their cots, almost as if they were in the arms of imaginary mummies, And then the screaming, just children screaming, just for screaming's sake, and other children just talking to an imaginary person. So nothing that I'd ever done in my whole life actually prepared me for that moment. It was hard, very, very hard. I worked in a room with...
Okay, now, they didn't mention a time period. Maybe they did in the very first one, in the subtitles. I couldn't read it because they didn't have any English on there yet. But I'm thinking this looked like either the 80s or the early 90s, mid to late 80s, early 90s. And the only reason why I said it is because of the clothes I see they're wearing. And also just from the picture of the man that he was taken then till the picture of him, the age progression of him. I'd say it was in the 80s and things like that. Now, here's something too that I think what gave people like a dark sort of image of places like Romania and all of that. He mentioned there that there was no color. And I think that's an image that's embedded in our heads here on this part of the world towards those places. Because I'll be honest with you, until I started watching a lot of the videos here, and so I said, whoa, there's color over there. and I guess it's because of the progression of years, more color came in. But he said there was no neon lights and there was no street lights or nothing like that. No, I come from a place that was like that. We had color though because it's the tropics, but we didn't have any street lights. I mean, like very rare. Like I would walk home. In the city part, there was lights, street lights, not very bright, but there was lights there. But once you get out of the city, which is not very far from the city itself, there's just no, there's that street light every 100 or so yards, so you're walking through a lot of darkness, so that I can understand. Now, going back to trying to figure out what time period it was, it could be the 90s for all I know, and the reason why I say that is it's an orphanage. So a lot of hand-me-down clothes. So if people are donating clothes, it's old clothes that they donate, and that's why you see what the kids are wearing. And also too, in general, if a country is like not the wealthiest of countries, fashion hit there years later than in the countries that are more developed, because the same thing happened in my country. Is there one question? There was an orphanage back home, but there was not a whole lot of kids in there. Uh, so I never really knew much about it. So because it wasn't a huge issue, if you're an orphan on the island, somebody's going to take you in. A family member, just and somebody will take you in. Period. Hell, if you're a stray adult, because when I was growing up, we always had somebody living in our house that was down on their luck, and then they build, and they stay with us until they build themselves up. Be it family members, be it just somebody that needs help. They stayed, and my mom had let them stay in the house. Which brings me to another point to where how we take care of each other in situations like that. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, politricksters get in the way of that too, because then they use the suffering of the people to indoctrinate them into thinking one way, and so they could keep power. And I'm not saying that's not what happened in Romania, but generally speaking, that's what happens. Let's get back to the video here.
20 children, so they were aged between 8 and 9. They were all still being bottle fed. None of them had left their cots for all that we could tell. They were cot bound. They couldn't walk. Some were able to sit up. Some just laid there aimlessly. You had one carer for 20 children. Carmen was a girl in my room, and she just looked like an 80-year-old woman in a child's body, full of wrinkles. And she died in the second week that we were there. So I was working in this place for 1 month. So she was the first child to die. And then there was Decibel, who always laid on his front. He never turned over until the milk came. I mean, the woman used to come along with metal buckets with the milk bottles in there. And as soon as the children heard that, they rolled over, sat up, waiting for their bottle of milk. But because the cots were so tight together, what was happening was the stronger children were finishing their milk and then grabbing the bottle of milk from their next door neighbour and drinking that as well. So the ones who were quite weak got even weaker.
Wow.
I just couldn't imagine how anyone could actually treat or not treat children in a non-caring environment. The fact that they were just looking after basic needs was just completely alien to me. So we made a decision, much against the director's will, to wean these children, these 20 children in my room.
I'm sitting here listening to this, and I'm coming from a third world island, like small island. And we never really had suffering like this there. No. And I've noticed a lot of things that even when I came to this country, and I hear people talk about stuff that's happened to them, and family members did this or this is happening. I'm going, what? People actually do that to people? And I wasn't really sheltered per se, you know what I mean? I was quite aware of my surroundings and stuff. So a lot of the stuff I hear happened to people like in places like Romania and stuff like that, and then like Africa and even in South America. It was like unheard of on the island where I come from. And it's maybe because we live in the middle of the ocean and we need each other to survive, so we actually pay attention to taking care of each other. Maybe that's what it is. But then we really didn't have that many enemies around us. All those islands kind of band together and look out for each other. When there was a hurricane or a storm, even when there were riots, some of the islands, we would send our police to their island and vice versa. You know what I mean, to help control the situation and all of that. So there was like a real community in all those islands and on the island itself. So when I'm watching stuff like this and I'm going, wow, this is crazy. Because this is about the time when I was a teenager. So I was aware, like I said, of what's going on around me. That just baffles me, man. You know what I mean? The things that happen to people in other places, it just baffles me.
And we did successfully. We got them on because we had baby food. We brought over a lot of baby food. So once we'd started feeding the children, the diarrhea stopped. They became stronger, and this was in a matter of days you saw these changes taking place. Within the month, we had all the children pretty well up and walking by that stage. And of course, once we took them out the cots, that was an awful experience as well, because they were being taken out the security, the only place they'd ever known, and you were physically removing them from that environment into something which was unknown to them. And they screamed uncontrollably. I mean, they felt really, really threatened. And all we were doing was taking them from the cot to put them on the floor so they could interact with the other children in the room. And we took them out for the first time ever. They'd never ever been outside.
Wow.
Florentina was a little Roma girl with beautiful black curly hair, but she was almost blind by that stage. So when we took her outside, I had her in my arms and she started touching the leaves on the trees and on the bushes, and everything had to go on the lips, just like a newborn baby touches everything on their lips. So Florentina would do with everything that she came in contact with. It was just extraordinary. And you could see just the change in these children to be outside and in the sunlight. I mean, it was just extraordinary. And once the children found their legs and started being able to walk, they just became little explorers. All they wanted to do is explore the environment in which they lived in. And so that meant leaving the room that they had been confined to, certainly leaving the cots. I mean, the transformation was incredulous, absolutely incredulous. I didn't believe that such a change could happen to a small number of children who've been deprived of pretty well everything: love, affection, stimulation, to be able to respond so quickly. And these were irrecupables. So if we could do that for 20 children in 1 month, you can imagine why I came back. My first marriage broke down. I lost my oldest son in a car accident just before I came here. So in many respects, looking back now, it's easy to see that, I was running away, personally, from all the things that were troubling me back in the UK, and trying to find this person who didn't exist anymore. I mean, my first part of my life was over, and I had no idea what the next part of my life was going to be like. I had absolutely no idea. So maybe it is not unusual that I could adjust so well to living in a ghetto in Zabruz, because there was nothing else really for me to do. I mean, I was here, I had to do something with my life, I had to make it work. And I then moved into Ferental, I mean, this disused block, ghetto, and I just immersed myself into the local area. I used to go to the bars with the local Roma, we used to have beers and whatever, and I just totally immersed myself in the community, which was the only way.
I was kind of wondering, where did all these orphan kids come from? You mentioned Roma several times on here. Where did all these orphan kids come from? Was it a result of the political things, or was it just a result of parents abandoning their kids because they aren't able to take care of them? Or just people who just died and the kids had nowhere to go? Or a combination of all? Yeah, because as I was watching this, I'm like, where did these kids come from? Because that's a lot of kids. And there probably was even more orphanages. Orphanages were really the deal back in the day. I mean, I used to hear about them all the time. They were always I read about them in books and stuff like that, you know. But it was usually as a result of a war or something, you know, and the parents, you know, died. You don't hear very much about orphanages. They probably call them something different now. So because you know, orphanages would be like a sort of a negative term to use for them. I think they probably call them a lot of them. They call group homes now. Put the word home in there to make it seem more humane, more than anything else. Let's get going.
I think I could have coped. I mean, okay, I was referred to locally as Inglés alone bun, the crazy English person, you know, crazy Englishman. But I never saw myself as an oddity. I mean, it never crossed my mind that this was a really strange thing to do. But I mean, I look back now and go, wow. I mean, there was a police no-go area. The police wouldn't go anywhere near it. No taxis would come anywhere near it. So we had to do a lot of walking to get in and out of the place. But no, I mean, I was treated with the greatest respect. I mean, I got invited to baptisms and weddings and so on. And so I was very much part of the community. They never physically abused me at all, or verbally. They would try and steal, fine. But I mean, they treated me well, absolutely so well.
Well, that's the thing about places where people are suffering and stuff like that. A lot of people think if you go in there, they're going to do this to you, they're going to do that to you. There's going to be people that's going to do that to you. Even in places where you should be like feeling comfortable, people want to do stuff to you, okay? Maybe the chances are higher that it might happen to you there. But generally speaking, man, most poor people in like really rundown areas are generally good people. A lot of the stealing is a matter of survival. No, I'll be honest with you because I'm seeing this right here where I am now. Sometimes their situation, and I say sometimes, their situation is a result of their own choices and decisions. That's just the way it is, you know what I mean? Like where I live here, okay, this is like one of the poorest states in the Union. And where I live here, there's a university like a block and a half down the street. And people here are how should I put it, economically deprived. Let me put it that way. There's a lot of like below the poverty level people living here. And I'm coming from a third world country, and I went to the college up here and got my degree and stuff like that. And I work with people now who is doing these jobs, and I'll talk to them and I say, okay, if you want to better yourself, there's a university right there. If I could come up and do it from a third world country and do it, you could do it too. My mom did it too. She came up from the Caribbean, went to New York, went back and went to nursing school, got her degree, and she was like over 50 when she did that, and then started working. You know, she might have been in her late 40s when she did that, but I mean, it can be done. And then when I say that to them, it's like I'm speaking a foreign language and they just don't get it, you know, because I don't know if it's because here a lot of the politicians tell them, oh, don't go to college, you know, it's not going to do any good to you, it's just going to make you this and make you, you know, hate the government and hate the country and all of that. And so they just work these jobs and then they complain all day about it. And then you say, you know what, you could do this, and then they talk about wanting to do it, but they don't. Or they talk about wanting to move to a better place, and they don't. And when you try to explain to them how to move to a better place, you know, because they think if they, let's say, they want to move to Florida. Florida is a big thing for them, the sunshine, the beaches and stuff, and they think it's going to be nice and calm, and how much they could make more money there. And you try to explain to them, hey, the money they're making there, doing the job that you're doing, you're going to still be living the same way there as you're living here because the cost of living there is higher, rent is higher, utilities is higher, everything is higher there. So they getting paid $15 an hour, whereas you get about 10 here. They getting paid $15 an hour, and it's commensurate with the economy in that area. So you're gonna go there and live paycheck to paycheck. So they think they're gonna go live there and they could go on the beach and they could do this and they could do that, but everything costs money. And then and a lot of them leave and then come back because they say they can't make it there. It's better here and it's cheaper here. It's cheaper here because everything is centered around the economy here. If things are as expensive here as it is in Florida, we all would be homeless. And for some reason, and really intelligent people too. These aren't really like unintelligent people. Really intelligent people. You try to tell them, do this, and this will, help you get to a certain point, and they just don't do it. Now, that may sound like me blaming the poor. I'm not. I'm talking about people who will actually do something about it. Now, there are those who just can't, and I totally get that. There are those that just can't. Generations of stagnation has got them there and they're not going anywhere, but there are people who can and they just don't. Boy, I went off the deep end on that. I was just trying to draw a comparison there. So this just doesn't happen in like poor and suffering countries. It happens right here, because I'm living it right now. Let's get
at that time. The demographic of homelessness was older men, 50 plus, who've been living on the streets and were what we would describe as chronic homeless. So they were there until they died. Went to various places like Garden or the parks and started talking with homeless people.
See, and that's the type of people that I'm talking about, that they're just there, they're just stagnant. They've lost hope. I'm not saying you can't talk them out of it. You probably can. A pretty good majority of them, but it's hard. It's going to be hard to get them out of that mindset. Because once somebody hit that mindset, and they hit that mindset at a young age, once they hit 50 or something, like for instance, where I'm from on the island, we always think we could do better. We always are striving to go ahead. Like I'm doing this YouTube thing, and I'm always like, I want to make the audio better, and I keep striving to make it better. Whereas they just go, oh man, this is it, it's over. You know what I mean? And of course too, if they're in an environment where everybody else is like that, it's kind of like the kids. They're in that environment where nobody moved until somebody came and sort of get them to move. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think anybody's making a conscious effort to make the people where I am move. They kind of like them where they are, working those jobs so that the higher ups could just keep getting all the stuff. So they pretty much keep them. That's why they tell them, don't go to college, don't do this, don't do that. Oh, go to trade school. So you're going to be a worker bee for the rest of your life. You wouldn't be the boss. You'll always be the worker bee. You know what I'm saying? But when they get to that point where they just give up all hope, and after years and years of conditioning towards that, it's hard to make a change, man.
But and we started talking with them, gaining their trust. We used to buy them coffee and cigarettes and everything else. And we talked about night shelters. And I said, okay, so tell me what a night shelter is, and I'll build you one. And they said, no, you're the expert, you tell us what a night shelter is. I said, actually, I'm not the expert here because I know nothing about homelessness or anything else, or night shelters. But you're the experts because you've got lived experience.
Yeah.
So all we're going to do is answer your needs. So you tell me what you need, and we'll build a night shelter based on those needs. And you've got to remember, back in those days, Google had only just started, so the internet was just in its infancy. So it wasn't as if you could go and Google what's a night shelter and have all this information.
And this falls in line with what I'm always saying too. In order for me to know about a place, I want to talk to the working class people, the people who are day to day dealing with the situations, and working through vibes, you know what I mean? Those are the people that's going to have the truth because they live in the truth. Whereas to have some, and I'm not bashing educated, but an educated person try to tell us how they are, what it's like for them. We need to hear it from them. And like he said, what do you need? Not what I think you need, what it is that you need. And then go from there. Instead of going, they need this, without even trying to understand the situation then. why they're in that situation. How can we fix that situation? You know what I mean? And I think a lot of propagandists is using the situation to keep people there to disease the minds of those who doesn't want to live that situation. Like, okay, like I was saying before earlier on, the things I see people do to each other, I couldn't fathom it because I wasn't raised seeing that kind of stuff happening to people. You know what I'm saying? I could empathize. And in order for me to empathize, I have to get the true word from the people who's living the situation, who's in there. What is your country like? You tell me. You know what I mean? I want to know what the rich is doing. The rich is doing the same thing all over the world, you know, living, buying big shot yachts and doing all that stuff. You know, they flaunt that stuff all the time. They flaunt that stuff so that we don't see the real truth behind what's happening to the majority of the people. You understand what I mean? So I like to talk to the people. Somebody's got a bad history. You know what I mean? A history of violence in their country, you know, or wherever they are. And they are being judged by that history instead of being judged about what's happening right now, right there. You know what I mean? Because things have changed. They may not have changed economically. They may not have changed technologically, but mindsets changed because how somebody would feel earlier on in the struggle, they're not going to feel the same way 20 years, 30 years later in the struggle. It's a new generation of people. They're going to understand the struggle differently. You see what I'm saying? So then what their ancestors have done in the past may not be what they want to do in the present to make a change. That's why we need to talk to them so that they could tell us what they need and how they want to go about it, instead of sitting there going, this is what we need to do. We need to go back to this and go back to that, because what are we going back to is what got us to this position for some people, or for the majority of a country, period. Let's keep going.
And all this experience, we had nothing. There was nothing. We had to start from scratch. The municipality gave us a building in Bucharesti, a former fruit and vegetable shop, but quite a large one. And they moved in. We cleaned it up. We painted and decorated it. We got some furniture together. And it was, in the space of 2 or 3 weeks, we transformed this building into a night shelter. And I said to them, this is your night shelter. It is your responsibility. I can pay the bills, but you have to look after it. So I was not out, I was never there outside normal working hours. So when it was 9 to 5, I went home at 5 o'clock. See you later, guys. And it was just amazing. They took on the role of looking after this place and treated it like their home. And I mean, the first morning I got there, and there was a guy who was crying. And I tried to comfort him, and he said, no, you got it all wrong. He said, I'm not crying because I'm sad. He said, I'm crying because I'm overjoyed. This is the first time I've been in a bed in 5.5 years.
Wow.
I thought, wow, that's powerful. That's really, really powerful. And another guy, Petre, and I asked him how he slept. And he said, sleep, you've got to be joking. I've never been more comfortable in my life. If you think I was going to waste that sleep. It's so crazy. And these are guys who were alcoholic, who were bums living on the street. And they totally transformed themselves. And I thought, okay, I'm kind of liking this, working with homeless people. So we opened in the winter of 97-98, and in November 98.
Wow. This was 97-98. I guess from the beginning it was the early 80s, there was a time, or the late 80s, there was a time period, early 80s. And so I was right kind of about the time period. Wow, that's not that long ago. That's crazy.
Prince Charles officially opened the night shelter. That was an amazing moment as well, because you should have spent 40 minutes with us. You spent about an hour and a half altogether with us. King Mihai also visited with Queen Anna, and on that particular occasion, it was the first time that King Mihai was allowed back into the country. I was talking to him and said, actually, you know, I have a night shelter for all the homeless men. Would you come and visit? And he said, yes, I would. I'd like to very much. So within a week or two, he was there, and he arrived. And we had a woman there as well, and she was blind, and she used to crochet little woolen baskets, and she put in this little basket bread and salt. And the king just looked at her, held this little basket, and wept. The person who actually welcomed him in the traditional way was a little blind homeless woman. It was just extraordinary.
Whoa.
Romanian men tend to be macho men. The world revolves around them. We had one case where a woman from the countryside was actually chained naked to a tractor in the front garden by her husband as a form of punishment. I mean, it's just awful. I mean, just absolutely awful. These women are broken. I mean, they're emotionally broken. They are physically exhausted. I mean, you can try and imagine a situation where you're living with somebody who's abusive. You're living at your wit's end, because no matter what you do, you have to try so hard not to upset this person, because you're going to get beaten. I mean, I've heard so often from survivors of domestic abuse, they put up with it because they thought it was a normal part of marriage, because their mothers had told them, okay, sometimes these things happen, so it's part of being married.
That seems like a theme around the world, you know what I mean? Not so much nowadays, you know, because it's usually like, oh, they do this to him, blah, blah, you know, but my dad wasn't the very nicest person. And of course, religion played a role in it too. My mom stayed married to him for the longest, but he was not a very nice person. I am going to tell you straight up like that, you know, he just wasn't very nice, you know. I always said he was the best role model. I'm going to do everything opposite to what he did. And I did. You know what I mean? I wasn't the massive violent type, you know. I was never abusive to my ex or to my kids. He wasn't abusive to us. My mom wouldn't let that happen. So, you know, we escaped that there. My mom would all put her foot down when it comes to that. But, you know, he just wasn't a very nice person. And back then, getting divorced was frowned upon. I mean, it wasn't anything extreme like tying her up to stuff and all of that. He would destroy her stuff and, you know, just want to throw punches and stuff like that, you know. But she wasn't broken though. I had a really strong mom, could tell you that right now. But then I see so many broken women here now. I mean, good Lord, I'm single. Trying to date you is like being a psychologist. So broken and so scared, especially when you live in limited economic conditions. Talk to them every day. And you really can't do nothing for the ones that I'm talking to every day because they're so petrified of being hurt. No matter how good you are, how nice you are to them, they just can't believe it. And then again, most of them fall back into relationships. And I could just tell you over and over again. And you know what? Here's what I've noticed from my own experience with it. They call them the bad boys here. I know you all have bad boys and stuff. College girls date a lot of bad boys, want a lot of bad boys, and they usually like the athletes and, you know, the alpha male, type dudes, right? But I could tell you this. About 80 to 90% of the girls that I encountered who dated bad boys in college ended up dating good guys and marrying good guys and having their family with good guys. About 80 to 90% of them. I used to have some of them come to my house and stuff, have really abusive boyfriends, like things that make me go, wow, that's crazy. I wouldn't even think of doing that to somebody. Must just do that to them. They ended up dating good guys, or marrying good guys, and living good lives. I've been married for 10, 15 years now. So I guess I'm saying that to say education have a part to play in that too. It opened up things, and that's why they don't like women going to college and stuff. And they say that's going to make them more liberal, and they're gonna want freedom, and they're gonna want equality and all of that. Because then they don't have anybody to control, and the ones that didn't, the ones that I'm dealing with here mainly now is the ones that didn't get that higher education, which means they stayed in that core group of people who are abused and broken. And some of them trying their best. I know people trying their best to do that. But I firmly believe if you it's like drugs. If you're trying to get off drugs and you hang out with drug addicts, you're gonna use again sooner or later. So if you've been abused and you're trying to get out of that situation, you hang around abusive people, other abusive people are gonna introduce you to abusive people. So you're going to be in that, and I'm seeing it right now, man, and it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. Let's get back to this year.
It's my home. I mean, I've never lived in one place as long as I have here, 28 years. So in many respects, it's also the country of my rebirth, because it's where I discovered who I really was, and I liked very much who I'd become. So, and my second wife is Romanian. I have a Romanian family. I have more Romanian friends than I have foreign friends. So no, I mean it's my country. I have the right to demonstrate and protest against the government if I see it as corrupt, and I take that position very seriously. I mean, I don't want corrupt politicians, and I'll stand down in Piazza Universitate or Victoria or whatever other piazza and shout my mouth, because I think it's wrong and deserves to be said. And if more of us did it, then I think we could effect change. So, yeah. Is that incitement to riot? I hope not.
Wow, I really, 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 should I say, not so much enjoyed, but really, okay, that brought back some memories that also show me parallels to what I'm living with right now. The thing about a people who is struggling is we have to realize around the world that we're a lot more similar than we're not. Especially when struggles are concerned. We may have different cultures, we may have different religions, we may have a different political system. But if we're struggling, a struggle is a struggle is a struggle. It's the same struggle, man. It's either economic, it's political, mainly economic in these times. Just think about it. We use stuff like YouTube and stuff to let each other know how we doing and thing, you know what I mean? Understanding each other. Because always remember that armies that are used to invade other places come from the poor people mainly. And maybe if we forego all the politics and all that stuff, and we reach out to each other, get to know each other as people, and not as caricatures created by those who want to keep us separated. Might sound like a conspiracy theory, but that's just a fact right there. There's people who benefit from us not respecting each other. Even within the countries that we live in, we do that to each other. Poor people, like here, poor people complain about other poor people getting what you call food stamp, which is government assistance. But then the same people who are working and complaining about the people who are getting aid, they're struggling too. Instead of, like, showing some solidarity or something. So on a worldwide basis, we got to eradicate that idea, you know what I mean? Anyway, man, I'm babbling up a thing here. I'm gonna just let the lady. I'm gonna leave a link to this video in the description. If you want to go check it out, check it out. This is a very touching video for me here. I hope it was for you too. Whoever suggested this, thank you very much. I want to leave links to other videos that I've reacted to on Romania. And if you like what I react to, please go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you could get notified, okay? And drop a like on the video, and please share the video. And hopefully I say some things that would make you go, that makes sense. Don't have to change your mind, as long as it makes some kind of sense, alright? You all take care of each other. Cool runnings.